Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, Jamie.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. It's the best day of the week. We have kind of an interesting episode today. We are down to co-host. Michael is on paternity leave and Will is not feeling very good. So I'm glad that you were able to join me. It would have been a sad solo episode.
Yeah, we don't need them. Maybe we could just take it on the road, just the two of us.
Oh my God, listen, don't tell anyone. We'll have our own little break off podcast. But it's so good to see you. What's going on? Did you do anything fun over the weekend?
Yeah, so I've been on the road the past 3 weeks traveling. I was in Denver, then Barcelona for a week, then Vegas last week for Verbo's Explore Fest, and then took the kids camping over the weekend. So just nice easing into fall.
Yeah, like real slow, real nice and calm. Well, I'm actually in Brașov, Romania right now. So it's 5 p.m. for me. This is kind of an evening podcast this time. And this is a vacation just for a vacation. This is not tied to a conference or work or a wedding. So it's pretty nice.
That is nice. And when's the last time you've just taken a vacation and not tied it to something to do with work?
Probably, yeah, a while ago. I did like some stuff with my family, but I haven't gone on like a vacation. Actually, no, you know what? That's a lie. I went skiing in March. So, but I think I'm just doing so much wedding and work travel that it feels like it's been a long time, but there's no sad violin playing for me. So it's all good. But I'm here and then in Istanbul. So 2 places I've never been. So it's nice to kind of get some new countries on the map.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, before we jump in, I just have to thank some of our sponsors. Want to give a shout out, as always, to TravelNet. Will was just at the Next conference last week, and I think we're going to have 2 bonus episodes. He had so many great interviews, so shout out to anyone that was there. I heard you guys had a great time. I'm very jealous that I couldn't make it. I promise I'll be there next year. And then, of course, our lovely partners at Sojo. They are doing this really great happy hour for your housekeeping department. We're going to have a raffle. All you have to do is sign up for the sample kit with the link in the show notes. And then on the 19th, we're going to announce the winner. You'll get a nice happy hour for your housekeeping team. It's a great way to say thank you for, a great high season. Hopefully, they deserve a little bit of fun and a break. So jumping right in today, I think the first kind of fun bit of news that's been everywhere has been the Delta kind of change in loyalty program points. And what I love about today's version of this is that complaining aggressively on the internet has worked because the Delta CEO has been like, maybe we move too fast. So are you a Delta loyalist, Jamie? What are your thoughts?
I'm not quite as high of a status as Michael. And I did not send emails to Ed Bastain, their CEO, like Michael did, but it looks like Michael's complaints did not fall on deaf ears. What I love though was one, it feel like all loyalty programs are like a death by 1,000 cuts, right? Like every year they sort of get a little bit less and less sort of impactful on like how much your points are worth. And they're like, we just want to rip off the Band-Aid, like get it to sustainability. And then like the clawback of like, maybe we shouldn't have ripped off the Band-Aid so quickly and removed so much all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly. You have to like slowly take away things so we don't notice because now everyone's like, oh my God. I mean, listen, I get it because he says it like when everyone has access, like it's not exclusive, like when everyone's exclusive, no one's exclusive, which I get. But I mean, it's just like, it was such a like blatant, I don't know, money grab. Or I mean, it's not even based on how much you use the product. So I just thought that was so funny because my Instagram feed, I don't know if it's just like the people that I'm friends with, but like so many people were like enraged. And I was like,
Mhm.
you know what? No matter what's going on in the world, you know where people's priorities lie when they're like, I can't get into the Sky Club now. And as someone who frequently travels and uses lounges, I would also be upset.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, being based in Miami, I'm tied to American. I can't be a Delta brat, but I would be pretty upset if my lounges got taken away. So I understand.
Yeah, no, I was actually pretty upset too because my lounge access would have been cut pretty significantly, and
You can't have that.
that is the one thing now when because I travel pretty often. Like, I think I'm doing 5 trips to Europe this year, like, which is quite a bit of travel, quite a lot
Yeah.
of time away, and then just and a lot of quick trips and being able to get to the airport early and not have to do an extra night away and be able to just show up at the lounge, get some coffee, get breakfast, and not have to deal with the sort of 30-person line for coffee that is the Atlanta airport at 6 a.m. I'm pretty
Yeah.
uh yeah. So
Well,
yet to be
yeah.
seen what these changes are going to be and whether Michael's going to be happy. But
Well, you know what? We'll just have him write some more emails if he's not. But I do love that they're like, okay, like give us some time. We're gonna figure out how to dig ourselves out of this mess. And yeah, so we'll see. We'll report back when we have some more information.
yeah.
But our next story is about Hyatt kind of going the Marriott route of introducing their new homes platform. Currently only featuring homes and properties that were available through the management company that they used to own. So not a surprise, but would love to get your take on this this new program.
Yeah, it was honestly, it was a bit of confusing to me at the beginning because I
Hmm.
was familiar with their destination hotels sort of management company where they actually had a management company where they managed like a lot of properties in Colorado, Hawaii, a few different resorts around the country, and they were a pure property management company.
Hmm.
And I think all those properties were actually bookable through Hyatt already. So now they sell their property management company to Lowe,
Yep.
which will be run under Coral Tree. And now they relaunch or launch a new their Homes and Hideaways platform, which supposedly are going to offer way more short-term rentals, vacation rentals available for book. And they're going to launch with all the Coral Tree properties as bookable on the platform, which I think were already bookable uh, through Hyatt and where you could use the points. But I think more than anything, it's going to allow them to expand it to be beyond just the ones that they manage and get way more property managers into the system uh, and um, and expand that way. And I'm guessing they had to get rid of their property management company to be able to and make more properties bookable. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, that's my understanding. And then also it just seems like it's the playbook that Marriott did with homes and villas. Like, in the beginning, Marriott had like a very strict, like people were sent out to go look at your property. And I remember when they came to look at ours, there was like a Deloitte consultant that was just with them as well. I'm like, this is just some 24-year-old kid, like getting to go to Miami and look at penthouses. I mean, that's not a bad gig.
Yeah.
But then over time, like there isn't that. I mean, obviously, if you want to have more properties, you can't inspect every single one of them. So I imagine like the management company that they sold off, like that's a good base. Like you said, it was already bookable, but that's like, okay, that's how we launch it with already a sizable amount of inventory that we know the standards, we know what's going on. And then I
Mhm.
would assume that they will slowly build out. So I would imagine that they're going to be looking, I'm sure they already have, but like partnering with either a channel manager like Reynolds United, and then eventually all the big PMSs. So, I think that's coming just like Marriott. So it's not a surprise. And I saw someone commented on LinkedIn. I mean, people get just like hysterical about this stuff sometimes. Like, you know, the hotels are coming for all the STR operators. And it's like, this is not a shock. This is
Yeah.
not the hotels took a little bit to catch up. But of course, like we've all been saying that they're going to go down this route.
Yep. and it creates the ability to keep people within their platform when they're
Yeah.
booking for stays outside of and going to sort of core urban areas and sort of leverage their points and you all and at least how I've always and grown up hearing it, it's like you build your points on business and then you spend them on leisure.
Hmm.
And more leisure travelers want to use short-term rentals, want to use vacation rentals. And if you're not making your points available for those type of stays, then you're going to lose bookers. And I think Expedia is going to put more and more pressure on people of if you wanted to be able to earn and use your points on vacation rentals, then it makes sense to start using Expedia to and earn those points and spend those points.
Yep.
And Hyatt, Marriott, Hilton are going to have to react. If not, they're going to sort of lose their sort of direct bookings to these OTAs.
Well, I think that that's the interesting thing. You can start to see like there's been a real uptick in just the average person realizing the points game. And, whether that's for lounges or flying or hotels, but now I kind of like, I think it's analogous to the streaming wars, quote unquote. Like, you know, if there's so many options, then it just becomes a little ridiculous. Like you have to pick a lane, like, am I going to be loyal to Hyatt or am I going to do Expedia where like I have more options? It really, I think it's going to be interesting. I think it'll take some time, probably a couple of years, but to see like who really is doing a good job with these programs because people will have to choose.
Yep.
But I mean, hey, if Hyatt makes this available and this comes, if this is available with our PMS or the channel manager that we use, like we'll push to them. I mean, any sort of, channel is welcome. I do think as an operator, something we've seen with Marriott is that because they don't allow you to brand your property or say like, hey, this is for us, like a Romy property,
Yep.
guests don't necessarily realize that it's not like a Marriott property.
Yep.
And so we have a disconnect between what the guests expecting and then what we actually offer. And I feel like that's going to be a similar thing with Hyatt. Like people are expecting that. So I'll be curious to see kind of how they handle the operator like vendor relationship because that can be always a little tense.
Yep. And we'll see. And I think we'll see maybe in Verma if Hyatt has a team at the conference, sort of
Yeah.
looking to sign up more property managers, actually expand it. And I'm excited to talk with the Hyatt team and see what their plans are. And it brings one more company into the space of trying to figure out search between hotels and short-term rentals.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've seen anyone sort of crack the nut. And I think we've
No.
all been waiting for Expedia to be able to do it with Vrbo. And it still feels like Marriott Homes and Villas is a separate thing within the Marriott family. And you can go to their separate site and find vacation rentals there, but it's not sort of part of the core search when you go to Marriott.com. And then and we're seeing Google attempt it. And I'm seeing more and more when I'm just randomly searching for a hotel on Google, I'm starting to
Yeah.
see short-term rentals pop up. And like, is Google going to be the one that sort of cracks the nut and sort of finally gets people to compare hotels and short-term rentals on a one-to-one basis within the same search?
I really kind of hope not. Like, I feel like it probably is the most likely option, but there's a couple of things. First, I think that even though it is potentially perceived as a bit threatening when you have a big hotel brand like Hyatt come into the space, it continues to legitimize the industry. And competition, I think, is good. It makes us all like we are all going to have to standardize and professionalize and all of that stuff. And I think what's also interesting is that runs contrary to what Brian Chesky at Airbnb, like he wants everything to go back to like the individual host. And like, I understand that the romanticizing of that whole that whole experience, I totally understand. And honestly, that's something I kind of love about some of the places that I've stayed. But realistically, in order, like we've passed the kind of mom and pop stage, the nostalgia stage, like these are big companies that are getting into the space, and it's whoever is the most creative and the most aggressive. And I actually think the one that treats their vendor and their supplier partners the best, that's going to be the brand that wins out in the end.
Yeah, and then I think the other piece of it, and we'll get to Airbnb in a second, is it's more and more companies going off of the property manager inventory. So you've
Yep.
got Vrbo, and big part of their inventory is from the large property managers, Booking.com, Marriott Homes and Villas, now Hyatt, Google, and working with large channel managers to sort of bring that inventory. And it makes the inventory that Airbnb has that exclusive to them, sort of the individual hosts. And
Mm-hmm.
it may be creating more and more moat for them of, is anyone going to actually try to get those individual hosts to sign up to other channels? And it's still 85% of their inventory
Yep.
is people with 1 to 5 units.
And I kind of, I don't think that those type of hosts are made for the other platforms. It's difficult to manage. I mean, when you start, I think you can still do, you can connect via your iCal link, your Airbnb and Vrbo accounts.
Yeah.
But once you start getting past that, like it becomes so much more. And I think that that's the benefit of Airbnb to people is like, it can just be your little Airbnb business and it doesn't have to be another, whatever huge operation. But I think the thing that kind of gives me pause or just like irritates me a little bit is, these operators that are trying to build these platforms do rely on professional operators to supply a consistent product. But then the policies that are made and the way that we are treated is like that we are irrelevant, or maybe not irrelevant, but like that we don't have any power in this relationship.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like we are supplying you with the product and it needs to be more of a partnership, or you at least need to give us a heads up. Or, we've had some interactions with a couple OTAs where there's been some overstepping and wanting to come and like talk to our operations team. It's like, you cannot do that. Like, absolutely not. And it's like, you can say what you want to say to me, but you're not coming and talking to like the housekeeping manager. You know what I mean? And so I think that it's a learning lesson. Like, how do we interact with those OTAs and these new platforms? It's a little bit of a learning period right now on how we're all going to work together.
And I think, and what gives you the power though, is going to be that there's going to be more and more OTA competition, and where each one gets, and over time, to be a smaller and smaller share. So if you had to drop one, like,
and honestly, we're seeing that now. I mean, in investing in your brand, if you're big enough and have the ability to do that and have your direct site, like you can make it so that you are not so beholden to one OTA. And I think that if you have that ability, diversifying it so that if you don't like the relationship that you have with one of those platforms, or it's just not working for you, you can drop it and, the pie will just adjust. It won't be so abrupt.
Yep.
But speaking of our favorite OTAs, another hashtag Airbnb rant, which I'm really not trying to hate on them so much. I'm staying in an Airbnb right now. But, last week we were talking about how Brian Chesky said that they're going to unveil a lot of plans. And some of those plans included like lowering prices, which they don't control, and also cleaning fees, which they don't control. And it was kind of like, how is that going to happen? And I think the headlines, in fairness, everything has to be a little clickbaity to get you to get into the article. But everything has been like, Airbnb is eliminating cleaning fees. And when I first saw that, I was, knee-jerk reaction. I was like, what are you talking about? And then you read on, and it's actually how they're going to display the cleaning fees and the pricing. So why don't you kind of take us through your thoughts on how this is going to be rolled out, or what the impact is and what the data says?
Yeah, no, the headline of essentially eliminating cleaning fees,
essentially being the key word.
Yeah, and there's sort of moved to all-in pricing at the beginning, so you can toggle on your search. So when you're comparing prices across different listings for different stays, that you're seeing a total price that includes not only the nightly rate, but the cleaning fee and service fees, sort of all the fees sort of rolled into one
Which is great.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah. Especially given that, and there's so much differences in fees now. Some hosts that sort of charge and include all the service fees in the price, and others that don't. Some that include cleaning fees in the price, others that don't. So as more and more hosts sort of have, and companies have different policies on what sort of fees they're including in an overall rate, it's going to make it really hard to actually compare the rates when you're looking sort of just at a bunch of different listings and what the average nightly rate is. So the fact that you can toggle that they're pushing more and more hosts to be in sort of inclusive of all their fees in that rate. And then what I think is the most important thing in that Skift article we're talking about, where Brian was talking about sort of essentially including fees, is that they're going to start, if they haven't already, sort of manipulating having the rankings sort of adjust for people that include cleaning fees could show up higher in the rankings than those that don't, sort of including the cleaning fees in the nightly rate.
That was a very diplomatic way of saying that. You were like, they're going to adjust it. No, like the algorithm is going to punish you.
Yeah. Yeah. And we pointed this out and sort of pre-call when we were talking, but you sort of said that more and more people are removing cleaning fees, was a few 100,000 properties that had either adjusted their cleaning fees down or removed them altogether. And the reality is that in the US, only 16% of short Airbnb properties do not have a cleaning fee, which is a really low percent, right?
Yeah.
But that percent is actually up slightly. So up 1.5% over the past year. So there are more properties in the US that are adjusting their cleaning fee policy to not have one. So that on the face that statement appears to be true. And globally, 44% of properties don't have a cleaning fee. So when you look at Airbnb's business, which is mostly and properties that are outside the US, even though we talk about US trends and most often here, in countries like the UK, well over half the properties don't have a cleaning fee. When you look at properties throughout APAC, most properties don't have a cleaning fee. So it is a sort of common thing as you travel internationally that properties sort of include the cleaning as part of the fee. I think it's also areas and that sort of have a history of it, where when you travel that and price is all inclusive, and that they don't break out the different fees. What are your thoughts there?
So I think, I mean, that money has to come from somewhere. It's the housekeeping, especially if you have a bigger operation, is an enormous expense, but it can also, like, the cleaning fee line item usually offsets and sometimes can be a source of like a profit center for the business.
Mhm.
And so I understand optically why they want to get rid of that, but he said there's a couple of things that I think are contradictory. So first, we want to get rid of cleaning fees. And then also lower prices, which Airbnb does not control. However, they do control the algorithm and how you view things, so they can push those higher priced properties down. And then they also want the operators, rightly so, to commit to paying their housekeeping staff a living wage. So that is expensive, obviously. Like, labor is one of us, after rent, if you pay it, or your owner payouts, that's probably one of your biggest line items.
Yep.
And so that money, if you're not charging it as a single fee, is going to go back into the price, but then that's going to make the nightly rate more expensive, which might push you further down. And I think you can't have all of those things. And so it can't just be like a race to the bottom. Who can provide the cheapest property? It's just going to, I think, really erode who is on the platform. And I understand people don't want to be blindsided by like a high cleaning fee, but also think about, you go to a hotel, it's not a big room, right? So it's the time that it takes. It can take like 45 minutes to clean a hotel room. You have a 6-bedroom home that has a massive kitchen, a couple living rooms, 6 bathrooms, whatever it is. That takes all day or like 5 hours. That's not a quick clean. And that should be a separate fee because it does take a long time.
Yep.
And a lot of more supplies and things like that. So this is just where I'm concerned about like how we'll rank, because that has a serious, I mean, if you're on page 2 it's just done. Like,
Yep.
like no one ever goes to page 2. And so I'd be curious, you have like data on the cleaning fees. So what are the numbers actually say?
Yeah. One thing where I'm interested in you in hearing your opinion though is your type of inventory that you have at Romy is probably the most conducive to be able to cut out cleaning fees or include cleaning fees in the overall price.
Mhm.
Because I'm suspecting that you already have relatively short stays. Like you're not getting people booking for a week or 2 weeks at a time, or that's not the majority of your stays.
Correct.
Because and then that you're operating within a building so you can get some efficiencies of not having to have your cleaners sort of drive from property to property to property, where that just overall increases the cost per clean. Where if someone does have like their properties sort of all throughout a market, they've got to send each cleaner to each property separately. And that does add to the cost, add to the time. Um, when we talk with hosts and obviously at AirDNA, we have a pricing tool where and people are trying to figure out what they need to do to sort of go to all-in pricing. All right, I've got my average cost per clean. I've got my average length of stay. Am I just gonna divide my average cleaning cost by the average length of stay and sort of bake that into the rate? Or is there something else I should do to make sure I'm sort of covering the cost? How would you guys think about it if you were gonna do it?
Yeah, it's just funny because we like recently kind of we're like revamping our like the actual pricing of the cleaning fees. I think it really gets kind of tricky because while we do have mostly full building multifamily in New Orleans, everything is really in the same neighborhood. Basically, it's very efficient. In Miami, it's very spread out. It's like from Fort Lauderdale down to Coconut Grove, if anyone's familiar. It's like a huge geographical area. So there
Mhm.
is still wasted time in traffic, and Miami traffic is hellacious. So there is that component. I think that we would do something like, divide the average length of stay and, divide the cost through there. But I mean, it would just be for that one channel. And
Mhm.
so I think that and I haven't had a lot of time to really, mull through the details, but like on our P&L, the cleaning fee revenue is a line item that we look at. And so you would be taking out like a big chunk of that from our Airbnb revenue that like quote disappears, but hopefully that's reappearing back in just like the nightly revenue line.
Right.
Um, and I think it just becomes a little bit more, how we look at our reporting would be different. And then also, I feel like we would lose just because we have whole buildings. I mean, some of those units are 4 bedrooms, like they're not all small. And so I'm just worried that we might lose on that play. So,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, and I suspect that a lot of people that do sort of switch to all-in pricing, while they might see it maybe a little bit of bump in the rankings, if guests aren't sort of toggling to all-in fees, they're seeing you with a significantly or they're seeing that property with a significantly higher rate compared to the others, and then aren't seeing the sort of all-in price till they get to the end with that other property. And
mhm.
yes, you get the surprise, but is that enough that those properties are still getting the bookings? Like that's something and we can probably look into and report on in the future.
Yeah, and I think one thing what we like to do a lot with really any kind of new policy is we A/B test. And so we're in a fortunate position where we can do that, and we can do that on like a listing level or a building level, market level, whatever. So I would say that if you are an operator that's in that position, test it out and see. You might be surprised with what you find, and then you can always switch back with whatever you've done. But I do, as much as I always like one of our core values is being adaptable. And I think that a lot of times we are, but I can feel myself really like bumping up against the wall sometimes with all of these things because there's so much going on. I think any operator can relate to that. You're just like your day to day is a lot. And you're like, we have this one process and it's working really well. And then they're like, oh, I guess we have to redo all of that now. Great. So I guess we'll see. I will be interested to see what the data shows about how the algorithm impacts, like whether your cleaning fees or what your pricing is. And then, I know that the big Airbnb release is in November at some point, but I really hope that when they do that release, that there is a lot of guidance on, what is like exactly what the details are, because I think that when you just have this one interview and it's kind of vague, that's what scares people, because there's no real answer. Instead of like, here's like the 12 exact things that are going to happen or whatever it is, even if you don't like what that is, you can be prepared to know exactly what's going to happen.
So what you're saying is you'd love a preview, and that.
Yeah, I'd love a preview. So Brian, if you're listening, I know you're a weekly listener. Please let me know. And yeah, so, well, I have had such a great time. Maybe you, Jamie and I, maybe we should just split off and have our own podcast. Don't tell the boys. I do love them. But this has been so much fun. And really quickly, just wanted to give another mention about the GMC report. This is, put together all the funding that's been in our industry. So if you're interested in signing up for that, we have our link in our show notes, or you can go directly to goodmorninghospitality.com and sign up there. And as always, we love when you tune in every week. We'll be back next week, probably with one more co-host. And again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.
Awesome. Thanks.